Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you to the team at CPS for inviting us. We are the College Access Department at DePaul University, and I am joined today by my colleague Camille, and we are one of the many essay editors here at the department. And one of our services includes a free essay editing, which is why we are here today to talk to you about scholarship essays. The essay editors at the department are trained by the professionals at the Writing Center, so you guys are in good hands. Our mission at College Access is that we aim to broaden the college pipeline and degree attainment of first-generation low-income students and students of color from Chicago high schools, and of course, supporting the students along with their parents because this is a team effort. So going into scholarship essays, think about these essays as a time investment. So what you put into it is what you will get out of it. So if you don't submit anything, then you will get no money, no chances of anything. But of course, if you do put in the effort and meet the criteria, then you will receive that free money. So who doesn't want free money, right? Scholarships could range from less than $1,000 to even a full ride to college. But no matter the amount, you should be applying for all of them actually, because again, who doesn't want free money? So if you think to yourself, well, this scholarship will only offer me $100, I don't think it's worth it. You want to think about, well, how many other students are probably thinking the same thing and they're also not going to submit it because they believe that it's too little of money to go towards to. But if you think about it, then if everyone's thinking that way, then there's just that money would just be laying there because nobody decided to apply to it. So make sure you're applying to everything and anything because it will end up building up at the end. And trust me, in college, like even an access code that you need to purchase, you can't just rent it somewhere at the library. You will need to purchase it, and that code can be from $100 to $200. So that scholarship essay dedication will definitely play a big role. So the prompts to these scholarship essays are more industry specific related to the major or career that you want to pursue. So what is the goal? Let's talk about what you should include in the essay for these scholarships. You want to show off your problem solving skills, that you're creative. You want to make sure that you're professional, that you're using appropriate language. I know we may be used to the language as if we were texting, but even little things like not capitalizing the letter I will not be okay to do. So make sure that your everything is intact. And also showcase how you think and approach the questions. Remember, there's thousands of other applicants also applying to these scholarships, so you really want to stand out and show that you're unique. So you want to demonstrate also your knowledge of the topic or subject. As I mentioned in the previous section, these scholarship essay prompts are more industry-based, so related to a major or to a career that you want to pursue. So you may want to add some experience that you've had in that field. So for example, if you're going into like medical school or something like that that you want to pursue in the future, you may want to make sure that you add in your scholarship essay how you perhaps volunteered at a hospital or something like that. Going on to the next section about time and preparation. This is very important because this determines the quality of your essay. So keep up with the deadlines, perhaps put it in your planner or create like a calendar as we were talking about. Or also you can put in like mini check-ins here and there. Perhaps you want to say, okay, by the end of this week, I want to have a brainstorm session, or I want to have a draft ready. Planning and organizing is very important. Also having multiple drafts, that's also where we can come in, making sure that you have it sent and reviewed by different people who don't know you, like us. Perhaps we may be like, what do you mean by this sentence? Or could you explain a little bit more, right? Because we're kind of like that scholarship committee where we don't know who you are, but we want to know more about you and we want to know why you should receive this money. So making sure you ask yourself some questions and making important decisions. What should I add? What shouldn't I add? What do they probably already know about me by looking at my transcripts? Because some scholarship essays may require you to submit your transcript. So keeping those questions into consideration. And then just checking in with different individuals, as mentioned, making sure that you have a strong essay, there's a claim, you're directly directly answering all the parts of the scholarship essays prompt that you're asking to write about, and then having evidence to back up your claim, actual proof, and then your conclusion, making sure that you also finish off strong.
Okay, so this is advice from real life financial aid counselors. They read hundreds of essays, and there's some that are good and some that are bad. So here's sort of the tips to sort of set the good essays apart. The first one is make sure you fully understand the topic, and this also goes along with sort of, you know, make sure you approach the topic or the question the way you would want to approach it. That makes the most sense for you. So take time to think about what the essay prompt is really asking. That's another reason why you shouldn't start at the last minute. Make sure you have the time to think about what makes sense for you, and make sure you actually answer the question. And one way to do this, and make sure you do this, is to provide an outline or write an outline for yourself to make sure you can map out what evidence you're going to use and what your main message is going to be. And also get feedback from your parents and your friends to make sure that you're actually answering the question. The next tip is to start strong. You know, everyone always says that first impressions are important. It's especially important in essays when the people who are reading your essays read millions of essays. And so you have to make sure that you set yourself apart as early as possible. And so make sure you have sort of an attention grabber or something like that. You have limited time with these people. And so you have to make sure that, you know, your impression is memorable. And one way to do this is to remember the 5 C's. So the first C is concise. Usually these prompts, you can write 500 words at most is the word count. And so you want to make sure that your sentences are as concise and clear as possible, which is another one. But also, you know, make sure that your responses are creative. I've read a few essays where they sort of tell a story, and I think that's very interesting, and it really sets their essays apart from the other essays that I read. So make sure you find sort of a creative way to tell your story and to share your experiences so that you can sort of set yourself apart from the rest. And also, you know, be confident. Make sure you know what you're going to talk about, and make sure you're not and make sure you just tell your story the way you would want to tell it. Because this is their impression of you, and so it's important to tell it the way you would want to tell it. Also, to go along sort of with concise is to be clear. Again, you have such a limited word count, and so it's important to get your message across as clear as possible. And to going along with sort of being confident in yourself, make sure you're candid. Make sure you're not really make sure you're not making up stories, because I've read a few essays where it's like it's clear that this person, whatever experience you're talking about, maybe isn't exactly the way they said it. So make sure you're candid and you're honest with yourself, and that's the best way to keep your reader focused and engaged. The next step is to pay close attention to exactly what the prompt is asking. Make sure you're following directions exactly. You don't want to get, you know, value points off because you only answered part of the question, or, you know, not fully. If it's asking for more than one example, make sure you provide at least 2, because you don't want to get, you know, useless or like little tiny points off just because you didn't answer the prompt correctly and fully. And that sort of also goes along with the outline. Make sure you're mapping your outline and you're planning to make sure that you do answer everything fully. And the fourth is use your own voice. This sort of goes along with the 5th C, being candid. Make sure that you are being true to yourself. And what counselors are expecting good high school essays. They're not expecting, you know, PhD essays. They want to hear what you want to, like what you have to say. So don't use a bunch of big words that you don't know, because it sounds inauthentic and it's not engaging. And make sure you don't copy from sources, but if you do quote a source, make sure you cite them and you reference them, and be honest and open. If not, you risk sounding fake and overdone. And lastly, revise. Make sure you are always checking your work, checking your essays. You don't want to you know, disengage the counselor just because of your like sloppy grammar or spelling errors. So make sure you're checking your work, or you get help from English teachers or essay editors like us, And also make sure that you don't use slang. So like a lot of the essays I'm reading, it's a lot of like wanna, coulda, and like a lot of contraction. So like couldn't, wouldn't, that's considered informal writing. And so, you know, just checking that and making sure you're looking at your work is super important. And make sure that you are answering the question and that you know what message you're trying to put across. It's best to maybe after every paragraph, you sort of relate back to what your message is, and just so that when the counselor's done, they know exactly what the takeaway is. So read your first draft, think about, you know, what's the point I'm trying to convey. And, you know, by the end of it, make sure that you talk to yourself and ask yourself if you're actually addressing the question, and did you provide enough evidence and necessary evidence and relevant as evidence. And lastly, make sure that you're ending on a strong note. Make sure your conclusion is strong. And I think a weak conclusion can sort of ruin an otherwise good essay, because as much as first impressions are important, so are last impressions. So make sure you end on a strong note. And lastly, if you do need any help, you can reach out to us as peer editors. We have a team of essay editors who are ready to help. We'll send a link maybe in the messages or something so that you have the link to our services. It's free, and we try to do it as fast as possible. We try to get it back in 2 to 3 days, but if it's like finals or a busy week, it could take maybe 5 days, but that's like an extreme. We try to get it back to you in 2 to 3 days. And so thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much DePaul. Again, this is a free service provided to CPS students. Please take advantage of it. We know that your English teacher, your counselor might be tied up, but DePaul is very much available to take on your essays,